Welcome everybody to my next update on my action RPG. So this is probably gonna be a shorter video because I only have one major feature to showcase, which is the passive tree. And the reason is because it took me a while to figure it out, not only in design but also the implementation. I was struggling a little bit. In fact, it took me longer to figure out how to make a tree than it took me to generate the dungeon, the random dungeon, which you will think is a much harder thing. But I don't know. I guess it's something that for some reason, I struggled with. But I got it working at the end. So let's get into it and let's show you what I work on in these 2 weeks. Okay, so let's get into the tree. So the first thing that I thought about when designing this tree was accessibility for new players to the genre. So I know the genre can be a little difficult to get into because some of the games, uh, of most of the games, have multiple systems that you have to interact with in order to make a functioning build. Things like the itemization. You have to know the affixes on your items, the modifiers, what modifiers are good for the specific build you're going for, and which ones you need. Also the skills, which combination of skills you need, and which ones you should be using and which ones you shouldn't, as well as the passive trees or talent trees. However many other systems there are in games of this genre. So it can be a little intimidating in games like Path of Exile, where you have this one huge, massive passive tree. For a new player, is probably the number one place where they quit because they see this huge tree. They get some kind of decision paralysis and they don't know where to go for. They don't know what's good. Also, if they spec too deep into a tree and they end up, not liking the tree, or they realize that it's not really that good, it's not really that easy to respec, at least in Path of Exile 1. I know they tried to address this in Path of Exile 2, which is good. In my opinion, Path of Exile 1 is probably the best action RPG to date. However, one of the big issues that it has is, just retaining those new players that open the passive tree for the first time and see that. And, they're like, this is probably not the game for me. It's a little too complex. Even though if you stick with it for a while as a new player, or if you are a veteran player, you probably know that the passive tree is not that big of a deal. It's more like a small puzzle to solve. It's not really, something that you should be struggling with. But anyways, that's one of the things that I wanted to solve with my system. Now, the system is not perfect, and I actually took inspiration from two games. One being Path of Exile, with the way they implement the notables, or these large nodes, which give you a bigger bonus compared to the smaller ones, and also Grim Dawn, which is another action RPG that I haven't played in a while, but I know that they have a system called Devotion there. So now Devotion is these smaller trees that have like constellation shapes, which are more contained trees. They're not one big connected tree, which makes it a lot simpler to focus on one playstyle or one archetype. So that is what I try to do here. So let's say a new player is making a fire build. Let's say that player doesn't know much about the passives and he doesn't want to, be searching for all the passives that could potentially be on the tree. So they're gonna be immediately attracted by these fire related trees. So no matter what the that new player respects into this tree, is probably gonna be good for their build because they're gonna be providing fire related modifiers. So you can see that the modifiers get applied, and in the stats you're gonna be able to see all of the modifiers that you have combined from all of the trees and all of the items that you have. The tooltips are gonna update with the new damage numbers, so it's gonna be a lot easier for new players to get into this. So now let's get into the technical side. The reason I only made this system in this devlog, I usually make at least two new systems for the game, is because I had some difficulties, uh, implementing this, I had to get into the node graph, which a node graph is basically this, a node connected to multiple other nodes, undirected trees, I believe they're called. So basically a way to make it so that you cannot unspec points that are before in the chain that are connected to the root tree, so the root node. So that was a little challenging. That took me a while, took me like a week, more than a week to figure out. It's also the same reason why I cannot respec individual points. Right now, I added a button that allows you to respec the entire tree, so you cannot respec individually. Now that's something that I probably gonna fix later on. Because when you are stuck with a problem for a while, you're not thinking straight. So at the moment, I wasn't thinking straight. It's probably a lot simpler solution that I thought it was at the moment. But for now, it's pretty good and functional. You can spec and respec points. You can spec any number of points into any tree like this. If you're a more advanced player or whatnot, and you know that you only need a certain node from a tree, you can just go get it and move on to the next tree. So I think there is some kind of there's still some sense of customization. Is not that handholdy. Just because of the fact that the trees are more specialized doesn't mean that the freedom is not there. So you're able to specialize in multiple. Now you can see that the tree is pretty empty right now. I only added the necessary trees just to test the different mechanics, but I'm gonna have all kinds of different trees in the future, as well as the tree for the class. The player is gonna be able to pick a class at a certain point that is gonna allow him to have a specific tree here, which is gonna contain more powerful passives. That idea, of course, I took from Path of Exile, the Ascendancies. I think it's a great idea, just to specialize the characters even more. So a couple of other things under the hood that I made in this update as well. There's probably not you're not gonna see, but one of them is I added a multipliers for at last. So now you have multiplicative and additive damage. So if you see a modifier like this that just increases your fire damage, that's an additive modifier, which means it's gonna be summed with every other modifier the same type and then multiplied by the base damage. However, multipliers like this one are gonna give you direct damage. So this multiplier is gonna be all of the multipliers are gonna be multiplied directly by the base damage. So it's in other words, multipliers are better, bigger modifiers to your damage than regular your damage increases like this. So that's another type of rework that I made. And the last one, which I don't think I have any points here on the tree, is that I made it so that I now have conditional modifiers. Things like, fire damage while holding a shield, stuff like that. So that's gonna give me a lot more freedom with the tree. It's gonna be a lot more fun designing it because I have any number of conditions. More damage when affected by this buff, or more damage while moving, more damage with access. More specific stuff like that. It's gonna be great, but that's probably gonna be part of the content phase. Now I would love to keep adding more trees and more, just fill the screen with trees and everything. However, I think that's part of the content phase of the game because I haven't finished the entire game in terms of the features. I don't wanna, just focus on something and keep adding stuff when I haven't even finished the other parts. So the next part and the next update is gonna be about the combat, another combat rework. The reason is because I have a lot of features that I still haven't implemented. Things like the stuns, freezing, the trajectories of the projectiles. I want to have multiple support for different trajectories. The monsters do not have any movement or channel skills yet, but that should be a little easier because I already made that with the player. I don't have things like on kill effects. So when you kill something, you're not able to gain charges for your elixirs, which is something that I also haven't mentioned from my previous video. Now you can see the elixirs here. And when you drink the elixirs, they're gonna update their sprite here, so you can see quickly if your elixirs are run out or not. So that's another thing. And also the minions. I haven't worked with the minions since I implemented them at first, so I need to do that. So you can summon minions of the appropriate level and modifiers that affect the minions and whatnot. Is the next thing on my update. So yeah, I think that's it with the passive tree. Let me know what you think. You can join my Discord as always. I'm gonna give a link on the description of the video. If you have any questions or if you wanna help, with art or something, mainly the art, I think is the probably the number one thing that is slowing me down. The art is I'm not an artist, so I have to make all of these things by myself. So far, everything that you see, I have done myself. But later on, if somebody wants to help me with art or whatnot, I'm gonna mention that. So yeah, let me know what you think about the system. If I can improve it, or what can I do to make it better with that goal in mind. Make it simpler for new players. And yeah, and see you in the next update in 2 weeks.